Well, hello, fellow constitutionalists, and welcome to the Dan Clemens Show, Christian political talk show. I'm your host, Dan Clemens, your constitutional warrior fighting for your right just to be an American. And I have to stress that, fighting for your rights, because it seems like our rights are being attacked from all quarters and by people who don't care if we have rights or not, and people who make up rights out of thin air that aren't rights at all, like the right to an abortion was made up out of thin air. Today, if you've seen the thumbnail on my screen, um, Anna Kasparian went on a viral rant back in 2018, and I'm going to get to that here in a second. But I found this on this rant on YouTube. I'm subscribed to some places maybe you don't want or shouldn't be subscribed. I subscribe to the Humanist Report. Because of my run-in with humanists around here, I like to know what they're thinking, how they're thinking, what propaganda they're putting out. And trust me, folks, it is propaganda that these folks are putting out in the humanist movement. But it's called the Humanist Report. And this video popped up, and I said, I know Anna Kasparian, and she goes on a lot of rants against things that she doesn't believe in. And on the other hand, she wants to force things on people. But anyway, there's a video link. The first link you'll see down below the video will be the link to the Humanist Report, the YouTube video. I put a parental advisory on there, rated R for vulgar language and profanity. And trust me, Mike goes on a rant in here that I'm an old sailor, so not a whole lot affects me. I mean, I don't like vulgar language. I don't use profanity. And yet this one hit me hard. I mean, man, some of the things he said in there. So please, parents, do not let your children watch this if you're going to watch this. And if you're a Christian, just be advised that there's going to be some vulgar language in there and some aspersions cast against God in this video. The second one's an article from a website called The Poke, and Poke. And make of that what you want, but this had the text to the rant that Anna Kasparian went on about. And again, there's parental advisory on that. When you read that, there's some vulgar language. I rated it R. There's vulgar language and profanity in that. I don't know why these folks can't talk without being vulgar or using profanity. Someone said years ago, well, using profanity is a sign of intelligence. And I'm like, no, it's a sign of a moron if you have to use profanity to get your point across. Okay, let's get into this. Everybody, and I mean everybody, has a right to their own opinion, no matter how ill-informed it is. Now, folks, remember, opinions should be based on facts and truths. A lot of opinions aren't. And so take them with a grain of salt, especially if you know that they're not based on facts and truth. And Anna Kasparian, her opinion is not based on facts or truth. Neither is Mike over at the Humanist Report. Most humanists, their ideas of Christianity, of God, the Bible, are not based in facts or truth. It's something someone told them. They didn't go investigate it for themselves because you can tell in their comments that they haven't. It was something someone told them, okay? Anna Kasparian went on a rant back in 2018, and because of the recent reversal of Roe v. Wade and Casey, her video clip has blown up on TikTok. Now, if you know what TikTok is, I do not have it, will not get it, because it's a Chinese Communist Party run and owned app. And I don't know why Americans don't get that through their head about that. But anyway, she went on a rant, so it's been put up all over TikTok, and Mike on the Humanist Report shared it. But I wanted to read the actual what she said because I can't bleep out. I haven't got that far along in my video editing to bleep out profanities. And whether I get there or not is I hate editing, folks. I really do. Someday I'll have an editor, but I don't have one right now. So I'd rather just read what she said to you. And it's very telling. It is very telling of her opinions. It's very telling of her ignorance of Christianity. And it's very telling of what she thinks a right is or right is not. So let's get into this, folks. Let's see here. I don't care if you're a Christian. In fact, I will fight for you to have your religious liberty and practice your Christianity. I believe in that. I don't believe in Christianity, which means that you don't get to dictate the way I live my life based on your religion. I don't care what the Bible says. You have every right in the world. All those women who identify with your religion have every right in the world not to get an abortion, not to take birth control, but they do not have the right to dictate my life and what I decide to do with my body. I don't care about your blankety blank 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 religion. And then she goes on to say, I am so tired of having nonstop conversations about what the Bible says. Honestly, I don't believe she does. Just from a standpoint of her comments on I follow her on Twitter and I've read a lot of her comments in the past. I don't think this is happening. This is a little bit of hyperbole here, I believe. You have your right in the way that you interpret the Bible. Again, I do not care, but you don't get to take the Bible and tell me, well, the Bible says this and this in chapter and verse. I don't care. I don't care. I don't believe in it, and I have the right, based on our Constitution, not to believe in it. Now, folks, I want to deal with that last one. That last, and let me put it back up there again for you to see. That last sentence where she goes, I don't care. I don't believe in it. It's talking about the Bible. And I have a right, based on our Constitution, not to believe in it. The problem with that, and this is where humanists get things wrong. This is where Democrats get things wrong. This is where these all the isms get it wrong. Marxism, socialism, communism, the fascism. This is where they get this wrong. They believe those ideologies and humanisms in there. They're authoritarian. They're totalitarian. They're tyrannical philosophies, and they always lead to that authoritarian tyranny. They believe, like Anna does, that our rights come from the Constitution. They don't. Our rights are natural, and they come from somewhere else. Okay? It's very insightful on how much she is a hypocrite and how hypocritical her comments are. I don't see Christians coming to people's places of business and writing because they disagree with Anna or anybody on the isms list that I just named. You don't see Christians using force of law to force your humanist agenda out of our lives. Are there laws? Are there moral laws on the books, like criminal laws, that we have on the books that are based in Christianity and the Bible? Yeah. You can find them directly in the Bible. Now, some libertarians would say, well, those just naturally come along. I've had many a discussion with liberals or libertarians about that, and I just don't see it, But I'll give them the point. At least they make a good argument about it. I'll give them that point, okay? But we're not running to the courts, or we're not running to, especially the courts. We're not running to the courts and try to have them legislate like they did with Roe v. Wade, which is unconstitutional. How they legislated Roe v. Wade into existence. Okay, and just a side note here, Mike and the humanists and probably Anna, I haven't heard her say it yet, but they're probably the ones leading the charge on codifying Roe v. Wade in the law. Well, sorry, sorry folks, the Supreme Court ruled on that. So the federal government cannot codify Roe v. Wade into law because the Supreme Court said it's a state's issue. And it always has been, always will be. And this is the other stupid thing. Maybe I shouldn't use the word stupid, but they're all up in arms about something that hasn't gone away yet. Now, are there a lot of states that had trigger laws? Absolutely. They were gearing up and getting ready for this. And if the citizens of those good states want those trigger laws and don't want abortion in their states, they have a right to address their legislatures in their states and their governors and say, no, we don't want this in our state. And that is right. That is wholly right and constitutional. It's called federalism, folks. And this is the other thing. All the isms do not like federalism because they don't like where it leads. Because they don't like the philosophy that federalism was built on, where we human beings, whether they're Indians or the colonists that came over, the pilgrims and subsequent folks came over here to settle, our founding fathers believed in a natural truth, a God-given truth, that we are sovereign individuals over ourselves, and we were here before any government was here. So they recognize this fact that people are sovereign over their governments, whether it's local, state, or federal. When the revolution was fought and won, we ceased to be colonies, and the 13 colonies became states. So we didn't have a federal government yet. Now, we would have, like, the Articles of Confederation, and those weren't working in the founding generation, so they went in convention with permission from their states, okay, went in convention and wrote up the Constitution, got rid of the Articles of Confederation and wrote up the Constitution, which I believe is one of the greatest human documents in world history. Human documents, okay, in world history. So you had the individuals who created the states, or the colonies first, then they became states, and then the states got together to create the federal government. That's called federalism. That means the federal government is subservient to the states in all matters except the ones that the states empowered them to be over, enumerated those powers. And if you go read the 9th and 10th Amendment, you'll understand what that enumeration means. So the federal government right now, this is a side note, the federal government right now is acting totally outside, for the most part, outside the Constitution. Okay? But we see here, and I just wanted to get in that little lesson there, getting back to what I was talking about forcing, Christians trying to use the force of law to get things done over all the isms. Now, are there some Christians that try to use the law? Absolutely. I wouldn't call them Christians, but you call them what you want. Absolutely. But you have these atheist societies out there, humanist societies out there. We have one up in Lewisburg here, that they want, if they can't get it through the legislatures, they want to go to the courts and take crosses down on private and public property, because they talk about the separation of church and state, which is not in the Constitution. You can read it from now till the end of time. You won't find separation of church and state in the Constitution. That's another episode. I've probably dealt with it in the past. So we don't go around like the humanists and like the atheists, the other isms. We don't go around trying to force our will on everybody. When I sit down and talk with folks about Christianity and the Bible, if they don't want to talk about it, I'm not gonna chase them around. Guess what I just did? I did what God requires me to do. I tried to share it with them, and they didn't want to hear it. That bothers me that they don't want to hear it, but I'm not going to chase them down. I'm not going to go to my state legislature and say, hey, we have to put this in a law that they have to listen to Dan Clements on the Bible. No. We try to persuade men. We try to persuade men and women about Christianity. The humanist agenda wouldn't be where it is today if it wasn't for force of law and the propaganda of Hollywood and the lamestream media. And this is just a simple fact. They've tried to codify in the law either through legislatures or through courts. And if they don't get their way, they always take it to courts, just like I think Ohio and Texas has two judges that have stopped the trigger laws in those two states, even though they're going to lose. I've read a lot of opinions by legal scholars. They're going to lose those cases if it goes back up to Supreme, and it should. At least what should happen is a federal judge should put the kibosh on it, because if they believe in precedent, which Roe v. Wade technically wasn't a precedent, That was legislating from the bench. Okay. And so the justices didn't lie in their confirmation hearings, but that's another episode also, and I'll let other people smarter than I take care of that. But there's two states, Ohio and Texas. I don't know if there's any more. I haven't looked it up. It was about a day or two since I've seen that. But they got judges, so they have these liberal judges that are trying to stop these trigger laws so they can still have abortions in Ohio and Texas. And that's a problem. That's a problem with these courts. I have another episode coming up. We're going to talk about some federalism issues, about states actually taking care of their own election laws like the Constitution says they're supposed to. That the states are supposed to administer the elections and make the laws to do so, not the federal government. And the humanists are up in arms about it. There's a Mikey over at the Humanist Report has one on there. I can't do a lot of rebuttal videos. Another side point here, I can't do a lot of rebuttal videos on the Humanist Report because of all the one. There's so much error in there. A 20-minute video takes me 2 days just to go through and rebut all the error. So I'm not going to give them that much time to do so. I'll pick pieces out here and there like I am now with Anna, but I'm just not going to waste my time on trying to correct all their error that they have in their videos. But if it wasn't for the propaganda of Hollywood, the lamestream media, the humanists, the leftists in the Democrat Party, and trust me, these humanists are just hateful of a lot of the Democrats because they're not going far enough left. They're not protecting what they think they should be protecting. Okay, but they wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the force of law or judicial tyranny. They just wouldn't. Their agendas wouldn't be as far along as they have been. And it's kind of ironic. That they complain about Christianity. And I have another program. I'm just letting you know some of these shows I have coming up. It was an article about Gen Z as the least religious generation in a long, long time. And folks in the humanist movement were just touting this. Oh, this is great. This is great. Well, the problem is it's a product. Mike's not old enough to know this, but it's a product of the humanist movement back in the 60s, getting God out of schools, getting prayer out of schools. I remember when I was a young kid, they had prayer in school. And if you didn't want to participate, you just stood there and be quiet. You didn't have to participate, just like the Pledge of Allegiance. You didn't want to participate, just stand there and be quiet. Okay, no one was forcing you to participate. Okay, but we had a prayer in school. Well, that's we got to keep separation of church and state. Public schools are part of the state. We got to keep that separate. Public schools aren't part of the state, and I'll argue with anybody that says that they are. They're not part. Are they? Were they developed by the state? Absolutely, they were developed by the state, but they're not part of the. They have no governing authority over people. Period. And that's what the state is. Governance granted to them by the people, and they have certain areas that they have governing authority over. Okay, but anyway, getting back to this. Just remember, not all groups who identify as Christians today are Christians, and those that do not follow the Bible should be ignored. If someone is forcing Christianity on you, I want to tell you, forcing Christianity on you, I want you to run, and I don't want you to look back. And contact me. My contact info's in here. Contact me. We can sit down and have a discussion about it, but I won't force anything on you. Christianity is a taught individual religion that can't be forced on somebody, only taught through reason and evidence. And this is where, again, the humanists fall down because they don't believe in God because there's no evidence for God. Yet they ignore the human body. They ignore the absolute intricacy of the human body, how everything works together, how your eyes actually work, and how there's no way that evolution could have produced what we have today just in the human body, let alone the animal kingdom. It just couldn't happen. It just could not happen. There was a design behind this. I'm sorry to burst people's bubbles, but there is a design behind the human body, behind the earth, behind the animal kingdom, everything that goes on. Even in the universe, there is a design. And if there's a design, there has to be a creator. There has to be a creator. What Anna forgets is there's something called natural law, which our rights are actually argued that we have them naturally. Now, in the Declaration of Independence, Christians believe, along with Thomas Jefferson, that we have those rights endowed by God to us. But others believe, and these are more the libertarians or libertines, that they're just natural part of human existence. Either way, both views hold to the non-aggression principle, and abortion is a violation of that principle. That means I'm not going to violate you or your rights, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. I'm not going to do anything to aggress against that. And abortion aggresses against one of those major principles, is life. That body growing inside you is not your body. It is a separate body, a separate human being grown inside you. And I get tired of these arguments of these third wave feminists saying, well, you just forced me to have a baby, carry a baby to term. Who forced you to have sex to begin with? And furthermore, who forced you to have unprotected sex to begin with? Let's forget about the very small percentage of pregnancies that arrive from incest and rape or is detrimental to the health of the mother. We're talking about 6 to 8% in that all three of those categories, and I'm being generous with that. The other 92 to 94% are out of the convenience of the mother. They got pregnant, they didn't want to be pregnant, yada, yada, yada. You never hear them talk about that. And when you bring it up, they're like, you need to stay out of my business, out of my productive business. And it's like, but you're killing a human being. They have all sorts of different terms. They use fetus, which means offspring in Latin. So I'm good with that term. I'm not super good with it, but because people don't understand it today, because again, Hollywood and the lamestream media propaganda doesn't explain things to them. But she forgets about natural rights. And I always argue abortion as much as I can, 90% of the time, because I know how the world is. I know how the Annas of the world are. Anna's probably just a synonym for Karen, but I digress. I know how they think. And so we have here this idea of we have natural rights, which we do. They're not given to us by government. It depends on your worldview, Christian worldview. They're given to you by God, or your libertine worldview, that they just spring up naturally. But it's kind of funny that the natural rights are the same ones that we get from God. But, okay. But, so Anna she can't just keep ranting and raving and being hypocritical. I mean, she can. But it just makes her sound crazy when she does. It'll not change the fact that abortion is wrong in the realm of human nature, and the humanist religion is on the wrong side of this issue. And I call it a religion. Now, I'm going to end on this note here, where the humanists, they poo-poo Christianity, the Christian religion. They poo-poo that. But the problem is, they're as much, if not more so, a religious cult. Now, I'm not calling Christianity a religious cult. I'm calling humanists religious, and they happen to be a cult. They happen to be part of a death cult. And abortion is one of their sacraments. It's a holy sacrament to the humanists that they can abort their babies. They can sacrifice their babies for their personal comfort. Sounds an awful lot like Baal and Moloch that were described back in the Old Testament, that have been proven in archaeology that these idols existed. Not that they're actual gods, they were just idols that parents were sacrificing in fire their children, their born children, for whatever blessings or conveniences they could get. And I'm serious, folks, today it's no different. It's no different today than it was way back then. Solomon said there's nothing new under the sun. We have a bunch of folks that have been lied to, have been propagandized, and have been brainwashed in the humanist religion that it's okay to kill your baby in the womb. That it's okay not to believe in a God. And whether you believe in God or not is beside the point. God believes in you. God knows you, knew you from the womb. So these people have been lied to. And we've had over 63 million babies sacrificed to the idol of humanist religion since Roe v. Wade began back in 1973. It's a tragedy, folks. And people like Anna Kasparian, I don't give her hardly two thoughts in a day. Honestly, I know who she is. I know I've listened to some of her stuff, and again, they put out so much propaganda that if you try to rebut it all, I'd spend the rest of my life trying to rebut everything, all the falsehoods that the humanist agenda puts out. And the humanist agenda encompasses all the evil isms of Marxism, fascism, socialism, communism, because they go against our natural rights. They absolutely do. Well, folks, this has been the Dan Clemens Show. I'm your host, Dan Clemens, your constitutional warrior. Remember, if you aim at nothing, you'll hit it every time. Thank you guys for watching these videos. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and so you don't miss I know I don't put them out a lot, but I do put them out, and hopefully they're worth something to you, some of the information I put out to you, and some of the warnings that I put out to you also. So you guys have a great rest of the day. God bless, and we'll see you on the next video.